Since the origin of Hindu mythology, around 2000 BC, Hinduism has spread to various countries including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Malaysia. However, the population of Hindus in those three countries only adds up to 0.5% of the total Hindu population of India, which is a little over a billion people. So in 2020, that meant that almost 80% of people living in India were practicing Hinduism. Those statistics correspond to the fact that India has adopted many values and ideologies from Hindu mythology into its culture. Specifically, through the influence of Hindu mythology, Indian culture upholds the importance of food, especially rice and herbs, and simultaneously respects the cow as a sacred animal. Rice, an integral part of Indian culture. But why? To answer this question, we have to dive deep into the huge family of Hindu gods and goddesses. In Hindu mythology, the mother goddess of fertility and creator, Devi, lives in two different forms: Shiva, the masculine form, and Shakti, the feminine form. Shakti, the mother of all creation, later known as Parvati, is known as the first goddess to have grown rice. And as the goddess of fertility, she portrays rice as a symbol of fertility and prosperity. Parvati allows for rice to be a source of sustenance to demonstrate a physical sense of fertility. Indian culture implements rice into the most important parts of one's life, such as weddings and education. At a Hindu wedding, rice is often thrown over the couple to hopefully foreshadow a prosperous life, and is often sprinkled around the newlywed's house. There is also a Hindu ceremony called Annaprasana, where the first solid food a baby ever eats is rice. Rice is not only present at their first true meal, but also at their first entry into education. At this ceremony, before their first contact with education, they must form letters on a plate filled with rice. Usually, the word or letter refers to prosperity and is then written on the child's tongue in gold. Now, the rice symbolizes fortune and prosperous development. The symbolism comes from the goddess of fertility and wealth, Lakshmi, because for most Hindus, Lakshmi is rice. Another example of the importance of rice comes from Jan Martel's book, Life of Pi. On the lifeboat, the first food item, pie, the Indian boy fantasizes about, before describing a whole feast of Indian foods, is rice. Rice is the first food item he mentions. He was on the brink of death, but the thought of rice keeps him alive, once again demonstrating the qualities of fertility and prosperity. One herb, known as tulsi, is used commonly for tea, insect bites, sore throats, and respiratory problems in India. The importance of tulsi comes from the myth of the quarrel between Shiva and the demon Jalandhar. The myth begins with Jalandhar finding out that he will live forever until he loses his armor and his wife Rinda loses her chastity. Jalandhar ends up causing chaos, and Shiva and Vishnu decide to kill him. Shiva and Vishnu get his armor and get rid of Rinda's chastity. This act kills Jalandhar. Rinda, now enraged, curses Vishnu to stay away from his wife and sacrifices herself. Vishnu transforms Rinda's soul into a plant called tulsi. This myth demonstrates the importance of tulsi and how tulsi corresponds to Vishnu as a healing plant. Tulsi is just one of the herbs that represents a deity and is used in everyday life in India. Currently, in 19 of the 27 states in India and 6 of the 7 union territories in India, the consumption of beef is illegal. The slaughtering of cows is not permitted. Although beef is often cheaper than most other meats, they still choose to eliminate beef from the diets of most of the population of India. This prohibition indicates that India cares about the type of food consumed rather than the price tag. Another Hindu myth supports this idea of food over money. The myth begins with Ganesha, the son of Shiva and Parvati, who is well known for his passion for food. Kubera, the god of wealth, builds a city of gold and holds a grand feast to boast of his wealth. He invited Shiva, but she sent Ganesha to fulfill his hunger. Shiva warned Kubera of Ganesha's dangerous appetite, but Kubera was careless and ignored her warning because Ganesha was only a child. But when Ganesha arrived, he ate everything, including the city of gold, and even threatened to consume him if Kubera didn't give him more food. Kubera then asked Shiva for forgiveness, and Shiva told him to give Ganesha a small bowl of rice made with love. The myth clarifies that food trumps wealth and inspires everyone to value their food because there might not always be enough. Another reason the cow is so sacred in Hindu tradition is because of its symbolism of motherhood and kindness. The cow carries traits of motherhood and kindness because it gives more than it takes. The cow gives milk, cheese, and butter, which are all enjoyed by the people of the world. The cow represents the Mother Earth and therefore must be respected according to Hinduism. The vitality of food to Indian culture is demonstrated in one of the Hindu myths with Shiva and Parvati. The story begins with Shiva denying that anything in the world exists, including the food that the humans ate. Acknowledging Shiva's denial, Parvati vanishes from the world to emphasize the importance of food. As soon as the goddess of fertility left the world, chaos ensued. Seasons no longer took place. So then trees could not bear fruit. No more plants or grains could be produced, which includes rice, the core component of life. Soon, the world was engulfed in the horrors of famine and hunger. Finally, Shiva recognizes his mistake and determines that Parvati is necessary for life to function properly. He asks her for food with a bowl in his hands. She cannot bear to watch the suffering of Shiva and her children and returns to the world as Annapurna, the goddess of food and nourishment. She is often depicted with a golden ladle in one hand and a bowl of full rice in the other, once again to symbolize that she is the part of the world that gives life, nourishment, and fertility to the world. The importance of food has been adopted by Indian culture through the influence of some of the Hindu myths told in this documentary. Those myths only narrate a few of the millions of Hindu gods and goddesses who established the value of food. Hopefully, this documentary has enabled you to see that you too can make connections between ancient myths and modern culture and find what makes your culture valuable.